start with just an update from me on the Worth dress, on Alberta's Worth dress. I've got 2 updates. And then I'm gonna just talk to Elizabeth about it, about what she thinks, all of that. But the Worth dress, number 1, is being photographed next week. Right.
Excellent.
So Country Life is coming, and they do sort of a feature called Country House Treasures.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, if you subscribe to Country Life, they'll do it either on like an old master painting or a piece of furniture. So when I mentioned to John Goodall, I said, is there any way I could do it on the Worth dress? And he was like, well, that's really interesting. We've never had anybody do anything like this before.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, please. So what do you think, Elizabeth? Will the dress make an impact?
I think it's fabulous. And for a magazine with that long heritage to be focusing on a piece of fashion, a garment, is so important to our field. And I love that they're thinking in that direction. In the US, we have Magazine Antiques, which is starting to cover a little bit more of fashion history. But I think it's great. I mean, as you know, and as you and I are constantly talking about, these dresses did not exist in a vacuum. They were on warm bodies. They were part of women's identity, and they were functioning within space. They were functioning in these homes, in these ballrooms, at these events. And you can't talk about, architecture, history, interior design, in my opinion, without talking about fashion. So I think it's terrific that the magazine is taking things in that direction upon your suggestion, and nothing better than a discovery story, which you have. And I think we'd all love, to envision ourselves wearing the dress. Is it, tell us how the restoration is going. Is it holding up? Is there a lot of backing that the restorers are needing to do?
So I did put it on, and I think you saw this, Elizabeth. I did place it on the mannequin because we photographed it for the Mapperton illustrated / coffee table book, which again, I can't give too much away.
Okay.
But I had to put on a mannequin and photograph it for it. And, that was really exciting for me because I was able to then carefully place it on top and kind of let it slither down over. And I have, from Preservation Equipment, I had ordered a proper mannequin. And by the way, thanks to many of you who supported that American Heiress exhibition fundraiser, I was able to order that for the Fortuny dress. So I placed it over that, and then I was with Malcolm, we were able to really carefully pin, just careful, like the thinnest pins, just on one side, the front panel.
Okay.
So it was, because we had to take a photo of it. So, and I'll have to do the same thing, everybody, next week when Country Life comes, and very carefully put it in. But there's a way to do it. You can put it almost in the seam, like through one of the stitches, the pin through it, so it's not getting into the silk. So it's in actually really good condition. It is going to be sent then I'm going to drop it off, I should say, sent to the Royal School of Needlework in early December after photographing, and they will start to work on it between December and January. And they will just they're going to freeze it first, everybody, because it does have some moth residue on it. And we just want to make sure. I mean, I look at it every day that I'm done at Mapperson just to make sure that no moths are like creeping in. It's already in a textile box. It's acid-free paper, but so it will be taken there, and then they will reattach the panel. But they want to look at it first just to see the moth, because there's some moth damage on the black silk.
Yeah.
But yeah, then once it's, once it's been, I want to say kind of a little bit of repair where need be, obviously the stitching of the front panel, the reattaching of it, and then conservation work, then it should be back in February. Yeah.
Incredible. And then do we have an exhibition coming where we can all come and see it?
Yeah. So the Alberta exhibition was meant to kind of only be 1 year. And that was in 2024.
Right.
And then it's been huge. Then it got really popular this year in 2025. And now we've just sent out all the information to groups, like large groups that come over on, ships, et cetera, because we're very close to Portland. And that's where a lot of cruise ships come in, and big group tours, whether it's gardens or the house. And we sent out all of the brochures, recent updated it, and we're keeping the Alberta exhibition going, but we'll update it with a dress and some other little bits of Alberta's as well. So
Can
yeah,
I
I'm going to put that dress on the mannequin.
Fabulous. And have you located any accessories that went with the dress by chance? Tell us if you found any like jewelry or like a little purse or a hand, some gloves that went with the outfit, or are you just kind of using eh, context clues and imagination?
It's a really good question, Elizabeth, and I know that this is also your expertise, like accessories, etc. I We don't have really very much. We just had the textiles, and I suspect that Alberta probably passed those on to her two daughters, and then they've been, who knows? I mean, to be honest, what's happened to them. I did find a little handbag, and in fact, I might bring it out. I don't think it necessarily went with the dress. It was too patterned.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? But there was a little handbag. I can't for sure say with certainty that
Yeah.
was Alberta's, but it's something I could definitely display. In fact, I might send you a photo of that and see what you
Please
think.
do. I'm really interested in accessories at the moment, and I think women at the time were practical like we are now, and they mixed and matched. And maybe that particular purse, little handbag, didn't quite go with that dress, but even just a little bit like in isolation, it kind of gives you a sense of, the Alberta's personality, women's personality, just, the size of it. A lot of these accessories were so much smaller than we have today. They weren't carrying around a 16-inch laptop. And just imagining, like, I love imagining hairpins in there. And sometimes in these little bags, you can find little hairpins or, just little touches that have been forgotten and, that we know touched these women's
Yeah.
hands. I love thinking about that. And sometimes the little things are the most interesting. I love hair brushes, hair combs. Even something that shows wear is, as you know, sometimes the most special because you can
Yeah.
envision, just the warm bodies touching it. And sometimes well, moths are a different category, but sometimes, the signs of usage or wear or slight stains, sometimes those are even more interesting to me than a pristine garment.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you're definitely then going to come to the Frock Me Vintage Fair with me.
Okay.
Everybody look it up because they had hairpins, brooches, lovely no, like you would have been in heaven, Elizabeth. And it's
Love.
not, by the way, not all the prices are 5,500 pounds. I just was like, this dress, two dresses I saw, I was like, what?
And they're like
Um,
in your size too.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the,
Yes, some of those little brooches you can pick up if they're not like precious gems, but they're
yeah,
still beautifully made compared, to what we do, what we manage today. But there have been some, I was posting a little bit about this on Instagram. There have been some big auctions lately at Phillips with jewelry and from the Vanderbilt family,
yeah,
especially. I think Gladys Vanderbilt had 12 or 14 pieces in the recent auction by Phillips. And those are like Cartier and they're like, enormous sapphires and diamonds. But, speaking about sort of like little bits and pieces and things that have been separated over time, still carrying value, there was a tiara, beautiful tiara. Owned by Gladys Vanderbilt, and it had been broken up into brooches, so diamond spray brooches. And I did post sort of a before and after photograph from Phillips on this, but, there's sprays of, like, leaves, diamond leaves, I mean, come on.
oh,
And there were, like, 6 or 7 that made their way around this tiara, and I know that the Montague family has a tiara. You did that wonderful YouTube
mm,
video on it. Um, but these diamond sprays were taken out individually, and they stand so beautifully on their own because they're so big, but they were only a fraction of the entire tiara. And I think, one of the brooches went for, over $500,000 and, times 6, times 7, not including like the centerpiece. But keeping an eye out for things that have been separated from their original is, to me, something that has so much value in it in and of itself. So if I ever get to, was it frocks and fripperies? Uh, I like to look for the little bits.
Yeah. Well, interesting that you mentioned Vanderbilt. I'm just pulling up my laptop here because I want to get this
Yes.
absolutely right because I was contacted by
Ooh.
1 second. I shall tell you this, and I've got a Zoom coming up. I'm going to write about it on my Substack.
Okay.
So I don't want to say his name publicly, but because I don't know if he wants to, but he's the great grandson of Gladys Vanderbilt and Margarita Drexel, who were both obviously Dollar Princesses and both painted by Singer Sargent.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be interviewing him coming up I think I put it in the diary in the next couple there we go. The next couple of weeks. So just before Thanksgiving, in fact. Yeah, which is
Ooh,
yeah.
we
And
need
he's
more
got amazing I want to get his memories down on paper. You know what I
do.
mean?
Yes, it's so important to archive and, the oral tradition too. If you record it, even if you don't, get his sign off, but keep the oral tradition and you
Yeah.
can take a transcript of it too, because so much does get lost. And, uh, I'll post this another time, but there's a book that was written by another descendant of Gladys Vanderbilt that I was using for research the other day. And I thought, and I had to get it from interlibrary loan. It was pretty difficult to get. It was written probably in the 40s or 50s. But some of those older books and some of the older memories are the ones that have gotten lost to us now, but they provide so much information. So I'm looking forward to that interview myself.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
stay tuned, everybody. It's coming to Substack. Now, I thought before we get into the whole Downton Abbey, and I know there's going to be a lot of comments on this as well, I thought this would be a nice time to transition over really quickly to Elizabeth, since we're talking about Gilded Age fashion and the Gilded Age, to transition over to Elizabeth's new book that's coming out in March. You guys, this is so exciting. Like, aren't you this is your 4th book or is this
This is my third book. This is my
right.
third book. I have to count. Yes, this is my third book. And it's thank you. And it's called Gilded Age Fashion. And I'm so thrilled to this is the breaking news, Julie. We're doing it on Julie's Gilded Heiresses Substack. Gilded Age Fashion, more than 50 iconic looks and the stories behind them is the title. And my publisher just put all the bells and whistles in, and I'm so thrilled. It is a gift book, and it is just beautifully, beautifully illustrated with top notch, like we're talking knockout dresses from the Gilded Age, many of which have never been published before. And I commissioned new photography from some historical societies and museums throughout the US so that I could get them to you.
So I just put the link in, everybody. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So make sure that worked. Can everybody see that link? If you look at Julie Montague, you guys can, is that right, Elizabeth? You can pre-order now, right?
You can pre-order now. I would be so grateful to you if you did. And think about one of your history-loving friends or Gilded Age television show loving friends and maybe pick up a copy for them as well. It's very reasonably priced and it's really sweet, a really sweet gift book. And for this, I always do original research on dresses, garments, accessories, and designers. So it's all based on original research, but this is the book that you want. This is the one that is completely accessible to the general reader, even, teenagers, grandmothers, everyone you can think of.
And I mean, how long have you been researching this book? Did
So
you
this
start it
one
right after the other one was published?
exactly. So, so my first two books, dressing up the women who influenced French fashion, was a few years ago, and then Beyond Vanity: The History and Power of Hairdressing, all 19th century, all about the women who we all love on this conversation. And so this one was about 2 years as well, and I really wanted to just try a lighter touch with the writing. And there's tons of quotes from Ward McAllister and also Edith Wharton. So really setting the scene. So like Edith Wharton bring us into the chapters, and I've organized it by time of day. So what women would have worn in the morning, afternoon, evening, and then special occasions. And then there are some wedding dresses in there too. So it's a really terrific gift for anyone getting engaged in your family or anyone with a spring wedding coming up, and also Mother's Day. So thank you. And thank you
That's
for putting the pre-order link in there.
yeah.
I will be ever, ever grateful to you if you were able to pre-order a copy today.
Yeah. you guys link there. So I've just
Yeah.
put it in again, which is great. And there we go. I think it's all in there.
And
Give me
Julie, I'll
a
be
sec.
sending you a copy soon. My publisher already asked for your address, so it's coming your way.
Well, it'll be all over my Substack and it will be all over my social media. So,
And
well done, Elizabeth. I mean, you
thank
are just
you.
incredible. I mean, absolutely superstar.
Thank
Um,
you.
anyway, that is, and obviously I can't wait for my copy, but I'll be ordering for my friend's mother, all of that. It's such a good, and you're right, it's such a good gift. I think books are one of the best gifts that we can give, um, because they're just priceless, really. It's history as well, which is great.
They are, and, this is a really, really sweet one. Like I said, it doesn't weigh, it's not a heavy book, and, toss it in your bag and bring it, to the bridal shower.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, everybody. So you've got lovely comments, Elizabeth, all
Thank
coming through.
you.
People are really, really
Thank you.
excited. So we're gonna dive into now, of course, Downton Abbey, the grand finale. They say it's over. Is it really over? Is this really the last one? Um,
What do
I,
you think?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel that there could be, a Second World War one. We sort of ended in between the two world wars in the 1930s. And but first. Let's get into, before we debate whether there's going to be another one. Let's get right into the fashion. And should we just start with Lady Mary's red dress that was
Uh,
bold? I'm divorced. Here I am.
that
Right?
that is right, just red bright red, out and proud. I'm divorced, like, come at me. That particular dress, as they say, lives rent free in my mind. I mean, it is she just Michelle Dockery, it's like, what can't she pull off,
I know.
so beautifully? But we're in the 1930s, and it's the era of Hollywood movies and Noel Coward and entertainment between the wars. And so her coming out like that was such a brilliant move from, the costumers, Julian Fellowes writing, just spectacular. She's the most fashionable, I think, of the characters over
Yeah.
time. I don't know if you agree, but I also am a fan of Lady Edith's fashion
Yeah.
in this particular show. I think the designers, the costumers just do a beautiful job working with her skin tone, her coloring, and choosing clothing that matches her sense of being a professional woman at the time. So you do have the two sisters. I mean, that's what I love so much about Downton Abbey, is that you can read an entire era of multiple eras of social history, cultural history through what those two sisters are wearing, essentially.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's
Love it.
exactly right. Because if you look at the two characters, you've got Lady Mary, who's quite bold in her statements and how she thinks, and they dressed her that way. And then if you look at, throughout the seasons and of course the films as well, you've got Lady Edith. She's a bit softer. They put her in softer colors. She's always the one that's sort of on the periphery, watching what's happening, and then moving in with, quite I would say, an opinion, but not as as bullish, if you like, as
Yeah.
Lady Mary. Is that right on that? And they dressed her that way as well. Isn't that
I
interesting?
I agree with you. They dress her so beautifully to show that she has that fire inside, but she was always, the second sister. But she comes out in this. I don't know if everyone's seen the finale, so-called finale film, but she really speaks up in this one, and she's found her voice. She's,
Yep.
now, a mother for a number of years. She's confident in her marriage and in her professional work, and she comes at one of these characters and really dresses down a certain con man. I won't blow it in case anyone hasn't seen it, but and
Yeah.
all of this is, the fashion, the shoes. And in this era, what I loved so much is that they're going out in public so much more. I mean, they're not just having these long luncheons and dinners in the home, but they're also going to restaurants, which is so interesting. And you can tell how Lord Grantham is not quite comfortable with all of this change as usual, but
Yeah.
starts to adjust. We also get more background on the American. So Lady the mother, Lady Grantham.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Wait, what's her name? Because Lindy Graham.
Well, Elizabeth McGowan plays her.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, her character. When her brother comes in,
Cora. Yeah,
Cora, of course, Cora. Okay, when Cora's brother comes in to town, and the American wealth has been depleted because of the certain con man, and it's really fascinating to see the women characters have more of a sense of the monetary. The economics of keeping up the home, keeping up the kitchen, keeping the staff, and investing. Whereas Paul Giamatti, who plays Cora's brother, is sort of, he plays a character that we don't usually see. He is kind of a little bit of an oaf, I guess. And,
yeah,
he has, made bad investments, whereas the women of the family have really done quite well in the planning. Um,
yeah.
One more point, and it is fashion related, that I was really taken in this film by how sort of small and contracted the house staff was. I mean, it was sad in a little bit. They're like sad in a little bit to me, but also very practical for the moment is that they can't afford to have the huge staff that they used to have. And so when we see like the staff meals downstairs, it's kind of like the core 7 or 8 crew that it used to be probably 2 or 3 times.
Of course. Of course it was. And interesting when you mentioned about when you see the family going out to restaurants and, they're out at bowls, etc. When I was at the Edwardian exhibition today, they talked very much about on the of course on the placards and when you went around, but also in the audio guide. Interesting that they said that it really was the First World War that brought an end to this era where the royal family was very closed off from the rest of the world. And they started out with these amazing portraits of Queen Victoria in the middle, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, and this is, of course, pre First World War, obviously. And then it moved into what happened during the First World War that, King George and Queen Mary really had to come out and visit hospitals and travel and be seen by the public. So, and, and they had to do that in order to, I think, stay relevant and at their time become more modern. Because, of course, you've got Edward VII and Queen Alexandra, who were very different from Queen Victoria. They were the fashionistas. It was all about, in particular with Queen Alexandra, fashion. She was, dressed head to toe impeccably all of the time. And they very much had this Marlborough house set. So they were big partiers. They had bowls to go to. They had shooting weekends. They were at the theater. They were friends with artists, politicians, and of course members of the aristocracy. Very different to Queen Victoria, but the impact that for me, one of the impacts that the exhibition made was that after the First World War, that was the end of this royal family that sort of stayed indoors. And we now see that, we see, of course, the abdication of Edward VIII, Wallis Simpson, divorcee, not allowed to marry him. Of course, in one sense, you could argue that Wallis paved the way for Meghan, for King Charles to marry Camilla, because, of course, the royal family was changing. Now, I digress here. Obviously, I wanted to make the point that the royal family really had to change. And we see this in Downton Abbey, the grand finale,
Yes.
definitely change how they were perceived.
Yes, it's all about the public image and the optics. The term that we use today is creating image making, or setting the optics, and the the changes that the royal family had to go through culturally, and the decisions that they needed to make to come out publicly certainly trickled down into some of the the noble families, the aristocratic families, and so it trickles down right to the Grantham family. And what did you think when they went to go look at an apartment?
Oh my gosh. And when he was like, "Where's the upstairs?" And she was like, or the bedroom, she's like, "It's just over through here next to the sitting room or dining room." I can't remember which room, but it was basically, it was a flat, a
It's a flat.
one-story flat. Yep.
Yes. Similar to what I'm in right now, but not at all as beautiful as what they were walking through. But it was so funny when Lord Grantham was a really humorous moment when he walks into like the bedroom, I think, and it's like this quick loop he takes. It goes in one door, it comes out the other, and he's just like, "Where's the rest?" But any of us would kill to have an apartment like that in
No.
London. But I loved also, it certainly was snobby, but he was speaking his truth was that he said, what do you mean there's people living above
Yeah.
strangers, living above me, living below me, and living next door? And then a woman comes out, with her dog or something. And it's really, um, cosmopolitan living that, they show in that scene that we've seen in millions of
Yeah.
movies. And a lot of us who live in cities live that way. But
Yeah.
that moment of just the reckoning with my s- my living space is going to change, not just the staff and not just having a valet to dress you. You wouldn't have a valet probably in an apartment
No.
like that.
No, of course you wouldn't. And
So
it's such a good point to make because it shows that how the aristocracy, who again, very much pre First World War, were like the royal family. They stayed within their big houses. Yes, they traveled up and down to London, but they were only socializing with each other. And they brought their staff, into London for the season. All their staff were housed there. Then, when they would go to the country house on the weekends, all of their staff there. Then, when they would visit friends at other country houses, like let's say, for example, going to Blenheim, their staff would come there as well. Um, and I thought that that was really fantastic that they made that point about how we as a society have evolved, and yes, it was a shock for him, but at least he was embracing it in his own
yeah,
way.
in his own way. And then there was that sense of nostalgia that I think for those of us who loved the series, we came through the film and like probably all were feeling that nostalgia. And then at the end, they do this like sort of montage and like, you see the ghosts of some of our favorite older
Sybil,
Sybil.
Sybil. I know,
Oh, Sybil, the
I
beloved.
know. I was
She
like,
came through, and then Lady Grantham, and I think it was beautifully done. And then as far as where they could take it from here, I mean, you and I could write the script for them, but they could so easily do, like you said, Second World War or a prequel. So,
yeah,
like, early, I know there have been rumors of this, but of Cora as like the American heiress, like
yeah.
did she come from Chicago or was it Cleveland? So she's from, yeah, she's from like an,
Was she? I thought she was. Comment down below, everybody. Was she Chicago? Was she a Chicagoan? I can't
tell
remember.
tell us if she's Chicago. I want to see either Chicago or Cleveland. But imagine like the scenes in the US when she's like a young, 18-year-old and like getting ready to get married and then comes over and then like the younger versions of the characters. And then we could have like the original house back, right? We could have the huge staff, like someone said
Yeah,
online.
exactly. I know, and just like flip it up. So Laura from Cleveland is from, so she says she's from Cincinnati, and that's interesting, Laura,
Oh,
because I
thank
could
you.
be wrong. Don't quote me on this. Do some research, but
Okay.
wasn't Helena Zimmerman from one of the other American heiresses who became Helena Montague, the
Okay.
Duchess of Manchester? But I'm pretty sure that Helena Zimmerman was from Cincinnati. So it'd be interesting to see if Julian Fellows sort of took Cora in. I mean, we don't know too much about her family. We obviously know her brother, we knew her mother, but it'd be interesting to see if he based her around um
Helen.
Helena in some
Helena.
way because Cincinnati. So there you go.
Yes, that would be terrific. And Cincinnati, another understudied city for the Gilded Age. There's a really terrific art museum there, and they have a wonderful fashion collection. So I'm trying to get some more information from them and hopefully bring you some of those dresses online at some point. But the Midwest, yes, there's so much more to be done. I mean, we often
Yeah.
focus too much on, on the East Coast, but Midwest for sure. And I just think that it would be a brilliant idea for it's sort of a no-brainer, right? Like do the prequel.
I
And
know.
then I just have to laugh because someone said online, imagine a young Mrs. Patmore coming to work for the first day. Okay, like I'm sold. I would watch the entire
Totally.
series,
Totally. Totally. I mean, honestly, yeah.
right?
Or Carson, a young Carson. Who
A
would
young
take a young
Carson.
Carson?
A young Carson, like, finding his footing in his new position, like, yes, come on.
I think we should just write to Julie. I'm just going to write to Julie.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Definitely. Well, he's in Dorset, so he's based in Dorset. He's a neighbor of ours. So next time I see him, I might sort of nudge him on that.
Okay,
Um,
you let him know that we're here for him with the writing and with the
yeah,
character development.
exactly, exactly. So everybody's saying they'd be obsessed. Of course, we're all looking
Right?
forward to the Gilded Age season 4. Which, by the way, before we sort of, we're going to wrap it up here. But I thought it'd be fun to wrap up with. We've already talked about the Gilded Age season 3, but I want your thoughts on this, Elizabeth, because
Yeah.
when the Gilded Age came out, on HBO Max. It was season 1, season 2, and I felt like it was a slow start. Not a lot of people were talking about it. It was sort of there, but and there were the people that were like me that like I really like it, but like
Yeah.
it wasn't like it didn't have the same Downton Abbey effect. When Downton Abbey first came out, and now I feel like everybody's talking about it.
I mean, I agree with you. I think it took a couple of seasons to get its grounding, and then it's taken off like wildfire. Season 3 was, I think the writing was on point, the character development was on point. Um, the, uh, the savviness of the writers knowing what the viewers want to see. I mean, some of our favorite characters like Bertha, really we're getting to see more of her and also seeing more three-dimensional aspects of her
Right.
personality. It was sort of like, here's a character in the first 2 seasons, here's a character, she's, a bull in a china shop. But then now we're seeing more in her vulnerabilities with her husband. And I just think I'm really looking forward to it. The scenes in Newport, I mean, if they just so season 3, we got more Newport scenes, like those outdoor scenes, just beautiful. I was like dying about that green
Yeah.
glass that was like out on the porch in the Newport. The development of the Black characters and learning more about life in Brooklyn, but then also life in Newport, which also there's, Martha's Vineyard has a history of Black neighborhoods and communities there. There's so much more to tell. I mean, I hope we get 8 more seasons
Yeah.
and I hope we get
Me
more
too.
episodes, but I do think that it's picked up certainly. And also, I think now we're, 2025 and hopefully we'll get the new season in 2026. But really some of these themes of, the second another Gilded Age, whether we're in the second, third, fourth right now, but in the US when we have billionaires, going into space and sort of making decisions for the culture as a whole is really resonating right now. So there's something about the show that's really hitting in a way of it's an escape show, yes, because we can escape to the glamour of the late 19th century and the dresses that the women were wearing and the homes and the mansions, which were only called cottages in
I
Newport.
know.
So cottages. So that sense of escape, but then also that sense of, oh, maybe I want to be paying attention to some of these themes because history always repeats itself.
Yeah. So well put. Absolutely. And I'm just going to add there and the trains. I just posted that. I reposted somebody's post on Substack. And it was like, can't we just go back to trains like this? And, it's definitely like 1920s, 1930s. And you look at how these trains were kitted out. And you're like, yeah, I was like, yes, please. Like, you know, I
The train
mean,
travel makes so much sense, especially, we've just had some shutdowns here in the US and some delays with air traffic control. And so many
yes,
people were choosing trains over air travel. And everyone was saying how pleasant it was because
yes,
you can relax, you can read, you can listen to a podcast, you can watch a show, and sort of that rhythm of the train
lovely.
travel. I know that you're often on trains, aren't you?
I am. I mean, I'm on a train. I can't complain. I mean, they're not as obviously as stylish as they used to be. Um, but I am on a train. I'd say I'd say every other week for
Yeah.
sure. I'm on a train every other week. I mean, I was on 3 last week. There you go. So yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think it will be interesting just to see what happens with that with season 4, if they're going to follow completely the story that we know that they're obviously telling between this relationship with Alva and Consuelo, and if it will follow suit with that. Will they end up divorcing, et cetera, et cetera.
I
Who knows?
That's
But yeah,
on all of our minds. I think we're all rereading Consuelo's history to see how
exactly,
Bertha will end up.
exactly.
But
Yeah,
the show brings a lot of joy, and and the beauty of the costumes really
yeah.
can't be beat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, exactly. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap it up, everybody. I want to say so many of you have joined. Like, we've got 80 live online, which is amazing. Elizabeth and I want to try to do this every month. Let us know if you're keen on that. We would love to. There's so much to talk about. So if you're keen on us joining every month, just make sure you're following Elizabeth at Gilded Age Fashion, pre-order her book. Follow me at Gilded Heiresses. Obviously, many of you are because you're on this live. And then, just in the chat, let me know if there's some conversation that you want Elizabeth and I to talk about, whether that's hair, accessories, more dresses, different sort of. We could go into the Buccaneers.
Ooh,
So,
let's do
talk,
it.
yeah, exactly. And their of course outfits. Thank you so much. It was just right. I just want to point out, you're right, Sally. I think Downton Abbey, you're right, didn't really take off in America till season 3, but I think in the UK it took off like right away.
Ah,
If I remember, it was like a pretty big hit over here. Yeah, and then it sort of obviously made its way across the Atlantic.
oh, good. Well,
Yeah,
we love to hear that.
yeah. Brilliant. Elizabeth, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, everybody, for pre-ordering her book. And we will be back, hopefully, next month, if not in January. We'll discuss. Yeah.
Anytime.
Right. Okay. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.